Here we go. We are on, and all right. Hello, everybody. Morning podcast this time. I got some weird light coming in, so it look like I'm glowing. So better now than it was. But welcome again to Growing Up Alien. And I'm sure, as most of our viewers know, there's some wild and crazy stuff going on with the normal people out on the streets, looking up and taking videos of all kinds of things. So today we have wonderful guests that we've had before come back again. We have Kathleen on top there, and we also have Jeff again on the bottom. Both ET and Bigfoot contactees. So we'll have them say hello to everyone. Oh,
Good morning.
I also want to mention, so there's a little bit of delay for Kathleen, so if everyone can just bear with us on our kind of rocky experience. I'm sort of a queen when it comes to having technical internet difficulties, so no worries on that end. So
Yeah, well, good morning from the Pacific Northwest.
yes, I know. So have you guys had much drone or sightings up your way?
Not that I've heard or seen. I look out my back field and look in the sky as often as I can at night, and I didn't see anything out of the ordinary last night.
No. See, here we
But
just have regular ET craft here. I haven't seen any drones or anything. So and Kathleen, you haven't seen anything
Here we have
really?
mostly overcast.
I did this same thing, yes. Yeah, somebody just showed me.
We're not going to see anything.
Yeah. This morning, somebody sent, I mean, people are sending me all these videos. What do you think of this? But somebody sent me a video this morning that some of these drones were supposedly doing chemtrails, but it was an airplane. So they're trying to, I think this is just theory that they might be the bad guys trying to, hide with cloud cover, so that we don't see anything as possible. Who knows? Anyway, theory. That's theory. So initially, we want to talk about some of the ET contact that, again, all three of us have had, and both Kathleen and Jeff have had both contact with ET as well as Bigfoot. We know a little bit more about Jeff's, but I'm going to open up with Kathleen, because we haven't heard you talk about your first experiences or your significant experiences with extraterrestrials.
Yeah. I've seen ships my whole life. Probably the most profound one, I used to go up in the woods to see what the forest people were up to, and sometimes they would watch and sometimes not. I never actually saw anybody up there, of the forest people. One time though, they picked me up and I lost. I must have been gone for a little while, but when I got back, I was totally disoriented and had no idea how to get home. And I was so sad. It was probably the saddest I have ever been in my life, that they left me behind. I was just absolutely crushed. And it took me about an hour and a half to figure out how to get home. Because I was just in the middle of a forest with no landmarks in an unfamiliar place. So yeah, that sucked on so many levels. But the reason I was sad was just because they were my kin and I knew that, and then they were gone.
Do you know
I say borrowed, I don't say.
yeah, do you know
I
what
was not abducted, I was just borrowed.
borrowed? Do you know what race they were?
They wouldn't come out and tell me. I think they were Arcturians. Not sure. Don't hold me to that. But because I have a lot of different friends, so they're all really kin, but it's hard to keep track of who is which unless they're, glaringly non-human. And most of them look very similar to us in different ways, so I don't even know half the races.
Yeah, cool. And Jeff, did you have a similar experience when you were going up with the benevolent Greys, that you felt, did you feel kind of sad when you came back down?
uh, I don't think I felt sad. I remember I was like a teenager when I remember being abducted with my little brother, which he doesn't remember anything, which I asked him not to let him remember. But I just remember thinking it was really freaking cool.
Yeah.
I don't remember like having that lonely feeling. I do get lonely feelings like I want to go home. I don't belong here. I know it sounds like a Radiohead song, but uh, I just I do get that empty feeling sometimes, and I feel like I've had a taste of what the other side is, if you want to call it that. That it, I know what it is. I have a taste of it, and it kind of feels like a curse once in a while. But I long for it. I mean, I love being here with my kids and grandkids and what I have, going on positive in my life right now. And I'm not ready to go, but I, I, I know it's there.
Yeah. That's I think many people, like maybe almost all of our, and just put that out there for our viewers so they can kind of reflect on their own personal experiences. And because some people will often ask, they feel bad because they're like, well, I haven't had, I had a lot of contact and I don't have any contact. And it's like, and that's kind of common. And I think, and this is what they told me, so I can't, everybody has their own experiences, they have their own family, so it can be different. But the contact that I had stopped when I was very small, as far as going up on ships. And they pretty much said, we wanted you just to get through the chunk of your life, basically. So it's very difficult, from contactees who are in full contact a lot, that juggling real life, and it ends up being a train wreck for a lot of people because they go around telling what their experience is, and everybody's like, you're crazy, I don't want you near me, and they end up, so for me, they left it a block where I didn't have a lot of contact, just kind of watching, so I could get through most of it, 20s and 30s and all that stuff, until recently when the contact came on full bore. And for most of you, I'm sure it's the same, because now is the time where we got to get going. And then definitely super feelings of like, I don't belong here. I knew that my whole life, is always that sensation, but now it's just really bad. Not as bad, I think, because they're closer. I feel like they're closer, so I can throw that out there. Do you guys feel like, I mean, of course the longing is, they know I want to go home, and they said I'm going to go home, but do you feel like there's sort of a more sense of peace right now because we're so close to being near them?
I can go. For people that are frustrated that they're not making any headway, and I've had different periods of time where it's like all this stuff happens and then nothing, and that'll make you crazy. Anyway, I dived into the gateway experience. Have you ever done that?
No.
You never did that? It's all exercises. It's all on YouTube. You just have to type in gateway experience. The CIA came up with it, and it covers everything. And make sure you get the workbook. Also a free download if you hunt around. Anyway, I was doing one exercise where, because you go into theta and then you drop a little bit lower, and you just visualize stretching your arm out. And I just kept stretching my arm out, and there's ships over me all the time. Anyway, I went up and there was a ship there, and I touched the ship, and of course it was just my etheric, how do you pronounce it? Etheric body. So I pushed into the ship, and I didn't even think about that it was rude that I didn't knock first. But there were only 3 people present. There were more on the ship, but 3 people. They knew I was there, and and I mean completely awake, just in a different brainwave state. I touched the 3, and the one I like rubbed his shoulder and in the back of his neck, and because I didn't have a mouth, because in my mind I just had a hand. So, but then I was told afterwards that because we're kin, I wasn't rude. I was expected. It'd be like visiting your cousin. You just show up.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing experience. So if you really get frustrated and not making headway, that is actually a shortcut. Another thing I have done is it's called a muse. It's a EEG. You put it on your forehead. That can knock years off of meditation, and it's fun. You just try to get, my favorite is the rainforest. I try to get little birds to sing. It just speeds up the whole process of everything that we're trying to accomplish. They're tools.
Yeah.
Used off of eBay. Because I didn't know if it would do anything at all. But my mother had done biofeedback, and so I was interested. And of course, we're not supposed to ever be in pain. So if you have pain, you should find some way to make it go away. And there's lots of different ways. There's cheat codes for pain. 55515 is one. Again, the CIA came up with that. It doesn't make the pain go away. It makes the pain so unimportant that you forget about it. And that does work. It's amazing. There's a bunch of them.
Ooh. Actually, before we bring on Jeff, I just want to say I'm not glowing. I haven't ascended, sadly. This is just a ray of, I'm trying to, I have, I'm not, oh, it's just out, look at this. No, it's just, yeah, cool, but it's this, just a review.
That's funny.
I'm like, look at this. It's like, what so yeah, so Jeff, what would you like to add to that?
Um, well, I haven't really been in any kind of communication, as far as I know, with the people upstairs. Um, I think in my 30s, I just told them to leave me alone,
Yeah.
basically to F off. And I had this thing in my ear
Right.
that I guess it's dormant right now, but um, it feels like it's active again, even though you told me it's not. I guess I'm just aware that it's there or was there or has worked or whatever. So I haven't really been in any kind of communication with any beings. Um, but every video of yours I watch or things I pick up when I'm studying all this stuff, I feel like, okay, it's kind of up to me now to reach out and ask them to be more involved with me and stuff. I think even Kathleen told me that when we had a chat on the phone back in April. You kind of have to ask for it. And part of it scares me. The Bigfoot stuff doesn't really bother me at all, but the alien stuff I've never really liked. But I don't know. My perspective's been changing, and uh, my fear's been going away. And I know there's some really cool events that are going to be coming up, and I got to get ready for it. And I feel like I'm getting more ready all the time, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense because when I was
Yep.
first chatting on the phone, that woman came through very, very, one of the most strongest connections I've ever felt. And she was something, the best I could describe her would be like Andromedan, either Arcturian or Andromedan. I didn't get a good view of her, but one of those very higher frequency beings. And yeah, you're not going to be able to walk away from this. This, but look at this. I was like, see, she's coming. Look at this now. Yeah, but you're not going to be, they're going to turn that on. And you're going to be rocking and rolling once you're a diplomat. So that'll be your job here. And yeah,
Yeah.
you'll no problem. I mean, it's just when it happens, we're all going to be, just like ready to go. So what? Oh my God. Okay. I'm just gonna, not that anybody wants to see my guest, this is my guest bedroom, but oh, for God. I'm either in the dark or I get, abduction lights coming through. Oh my God. Crazy.
I expect the subterranean people to show themselves long before the
Yeah.
extraterrestrial people do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And most of them look just like us. So, like you said, yeah, we're not even going to notice them. They're already among us.
Yeah.
I came across something once that said, once everything comes to light, we're going to realize that on any city block, there's at least one family not from this place. And
Yes.
they've been there for 30 years, and that's the nice old guy down the corner that keeps the pretty posies out front. And it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, this is worse. Oh my God. No, me. Oh, God. All right. Try to keep me from being the distraction here. All right. All right. Let's try that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Frank Chili, he was saying the same thing. People are going to realize, all the time that, because Linda, you guys
They've been
probably
here all along.
Linda's on the show, but she had some strange experiences. I had a strange experience in Clinton, but Linda had some in Florida where she lives, and she was by the pool when the apartment complex, and this a very attractive woman was there too, and she started up a conversation, but like super friendly, just chatty, and Linda's kind of like, this is this, when someone's so friendly and nice, you kind of takes you by surprise. You're kind of like, and she all of a sudden the conversation, oh, I got it. Oh, look at that poor man over there with his garbage. He needs some help. So the elderly man she ran up, helped the man with his garbage and came back. And Linda's like, and then she was shopping as I don't know if it was like a drugstore type place. And there was another man there and he was working in the store and somebody had dropped something and broke a glass and all. And he's like, oh, let me get this all cleaned up. And Linda's watching him. He's like all excited about cleaning it up. And so we don't want anybody to get hurt. And and she's washing them. And he says, and she asked her, do you see any more? We don't want to leave any glass. We don't want anybody to get hurt. I want to make sure I get it all. And and I was in a store, same thing. Like my mom was shopping in a drugstore here in Clinton. And there was a blonde man, young man, teenager, late teenager, not super tall or anything. So I didn't need, he looked like a human. He was cute, nice blonde, longer blonde hair. But like within 2 seconds of walking in the store, I could feel his energy like 25 feet away from I'm like, it hit me. I was like, and you could hear him just super friendly and cheerful. Like how many times you meet it, and there are teenagers like this, but it's kind of rare that you meet a teenager working in a store who's cheerful and chatty and the best day ever life kind of experience. And that's what he was like. And you could feel he was radiating this joy. And I'm like 25 feet away, and I'm just like, I stop, and I'm like, no. I'm looking at him, I'm like, dude, like I've never felt somebody's frequency that far away. But he looked human because I'm like, this guy's not ET, he's in a human body. Wow. So, but I was thinking, I'm like, Jesus, if I ever knew someone like this, we'd be like fast friends. So that was, and it kind of threw me because he wasn't in an ET body. So I'm like, that's so weird. Then, if anybody watches Michael Salo with JP picked up some of these extraterrestrials that are going to be seated that Samyasi was telling me about. The thousands of these guys are going to be seated. And the guys that he picked up went into a med bed type thing. They were turned into humans. That could be where they're shifting their body image to look more like us. So that's what I was always looking for, these amazing.
Or maybe they just look like us.
They shifted. He actually took them to a base. So these guys were like what they call Nordics. And he actually took them to a base. One got turned into an Asian guy. So they were waiting there for like an hour. And he was like, what the heck's going on? And he's starting to twiddle his thumbs and be like, hey, come on, guys, right? So all of a sudden, these different men come out. And he's like, who are you? Where's those guys that were with us? He says, we're the same guys. And they just changed their appearance. So I said, oh, okay, all right, yeah. So if you feel that kind of energy, it's possibly they are extraterrestrial. They'll look like a human, but it's like, oh, okay. Well, this is interesting. So
late last summer. So it was late last summer, and I was driving home. Now I live in the middle of a forest. And I don't live inside a town, but I was coming out of the town that's closest to me. It's Tynesta, where I live. And the next town is literally 10 miles. And I came across this female, and I couldn't put an age on her. I couldn't tell you if she was a teenager or in her 20s or in her 30s. But the oddest thing was she was just walking with a walking stick, and she had wired earbuds in. And I was compelled, it was just something was very odd. Her clothes were spotless. So I pulled over to talk to her, and she pauses, smiles really big, meticulously takes out both earbuds, holds them in her hand, looks at me and smiles again and says, oh, I'm okay. Because I asked if she needed a ride. But do you remember back in World War II, they had those bedrolls on their backs that they wore? She had one of those, but it wasn't like military or anything. It was like brand spanking new. Now, if this chick was sleeping in the woods, she would not look brand spanking new. And just the whole thing was very weird. So I finished coming home, and she should have walked up in front of my house, and I was watching for her. She never came. I waited and waited, and I drove back up. Nothing. Never saw her again. So to this day, I don't know what the heck that was. But there was like 19 different things that did not match. First off, the bedroll. Second off, every single piece of her clothing was completely brand new. Could not age her, and I'm very good at that because I used to hire people. It's like it went on and on of all these things that didn't fit. And then where did she go? I suppose she could have gone off into the woods and put up a tent, but I don't know. There wasn't enough time, and that's what, after I left, I'm like, it's a 10-mile walk to the next town, and there is no hotel there. So it would have been another day or two before she got to the next bigger town where there was a hotel. She was just perfectly happy walking. Like, was she put there just to get my attention? Was there a purpose? I have no idea. It's only conjecture.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I didn't have anything to follow up on that.
Oh, but I'm just gonna I had two other experiences that relate to what you had, and I think there's other people have too, where there's just these unusually striking people wearing really, I don't know, like interesting clothes, like nice human clothes, but like, I don't know, just stylish.
Brand new?
Stylish. Brand new. Yeah. and they're like just walking somewhere, and you're kind of like, you just don't see people. You know, when you're going walking, because I'm out like you in the country, we're all dressed like, you know, I got my horse jeans on, and you know, I'm not, my hair's
Yep.
back, and I got hay hanging everywhere. But I saw that twice. A very tall woman in a very interesting like raincoat. It was a cold day, long. She was unusually tall and very like shapely, you know. So I was looking out the window, and it just, you know, I had to see her again. We have in a park near my house, there's a book drop. People put books in there you can read. She went over and took a book out and was reading. She was just sitting in the park all by herself, standing in the park, very tall, elegantly dressed, reading a book, reading one of those books. I'm like, who the hell? I'm like that. I texted my friend Patrick. I said, Patrick, I said, I think there's an extraterrestrial in the park. I said, this person, like right now, and I went outside. I'm like, look, I don't want to be like weird, but I'm like, look, I'm like, what is this person going to do? I'm watching them. And then she just left, walked very elegantly, and just walked down the street. That I'm like, that was weird. Then there was another lady, teenager age, but again, you can't age them because there's something. She was walking by in front of my house. And I said, oh, and it struck me because she was very attractive, but then had very nice, stylish clothes on, which you don't see. So I'm like, good. It's very stylish looking woman. And I let her pass. I was in my work truck, and she looked at me. Because usually people I just said, go ahead, pass, you know, and I'm, you know, but she looked at me like this. She was like, oh my, like I scared her. Like she was looking at me. Like, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, hi. And then she calmed down and walked. So maybe people should be kind of, just in case these things happen, maybe that's what you're experiencing. But
Well,
I wonder if we're supposed to be practicing our telepathy.
it could be.
We should try it next time.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jeff. We have that delay problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I call it, I met a stranger one day. It kind of falls in line with what you guys are talking about, but I was living in this condominium, and it was, I think, a Sunday. It was right around Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I pulled out to the main road to go to Starbucks, and I could see Mount St. Helens in the background, or way over there. It had a bunch of snow on it, and I'm like, oh, I'm going there today. And so I went and got some coffee, and I'm texting my friend Arla, who lives in eastern Oklahoma, and I told her, yeah, I'm going to go drive out toward Mount St. Helens. And we chit chatted or texted back and forth for a while. And she finally said, well, are you going to sit there and drink coffee? Are you going to go? And I said, oh, you're right. I should just go. So I drove. I had to go up the freeway and then take an exit and head east for several miles. And I was driving past a piece of property that we had when I was really, really young. We had 1 acre on a creek, and we would, you know, spend the night in tents and stuff there during the summer. And anyway, let me fast forward. So there was back then there was a guy named a chief named Chief Laluska, and he was building a cultural center. And so every time we drove by, we're like, oh, look for Chief Laluska. And I think we saw him working on the side of the building one day, and that's, you know, years ago. And I had never stopped there to visit his cultural center. So I decided I'm going to stop, and pulled in there. It was closed, but there were totem poles and art all over the grounds. And I walked around, and I was feeling like I could just really feel the Native American spirit, and I just felt tingly and stuff, and I was really, you know, just in the zone, I guess. Well, I decided to head out and take a ride on the main road and go down, you know, head down the road. And across the road, I could see a driveway that kind of went up a little bit, and a big old pickup truck, and a guy cutting brush with the Cyndi Loppers. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I thought, I'm supposed to talk to this guy. And then I didn't. I turned right, and I started going down the road. I'm going like 10, 15, 20 miles an hour. Well, my Jeep just started swerving back and forth uncontrollably, just perfectly like this. And I had brand new tires on there, and it wasn't icy. And it was just went back and forth, like several times. And I finally came to a stop, and I texted my friend Arla. I still had some cell phone service out there. And I told her what just happened, and I told her I saw this guy. So I got out and looked to see if I had any flat tires. I didn't, and I thought, well, I better go back. And so the guy sees me turn around, so he walks down the hill to the road. I throw my cell phone on the front seat and hop out, and we just start talking. And I said, "Did you see that?" And he says, "Well, you can't do any better than that." And I said, "Well, is it icy out there?" He goes, "Well, I walked down the road this morning. It was a little bit icy, but meanwhile, cars are whizzing by at 15, 60 miles an hour, no problem." And I'm like, "I don't know." So we just started talking, and he leaned up against the fence post, and he had some blood running down his arm. And I kept staring at that. I'm like, "What in the world is going on here?" But we chit chatted for a while, and I have it written down right here. Let me tell you what he told me. This is up by Ariel, Washington, kind of the area where D.B. Cooper supposedly landed, or the money was part of the money. The money was found, I think, in the Columbia River. Anyway, he told me, "What you think that has not come yet has been with you all along. Let go of what holds you back. Why do humans always hide from what they truly want? Why do they make excuses for their lives? It's time. Feel what you feel. Honor what you feel. People waiting at the door. Are you ready to show them the door? Trust. No, let go of control. It's not yours to control. This is more than the both of you know. Let go." But those are some of the. He also told me that I could change my perspective on the world, and that's about the same time I heard about the Great Awakening. So it all kind of lines up. Well, then he asked me what I like to do, and I told him, "Oh, I'm really into the forest people subject," and he just says, "You should write a book." And then he says, "What is it that you do, Jeff?" Or we never introduced ourselves. I didn't know his name. He didn't know my name. He just asked me, "So what is it that you do?" I said, "Well, I deliver mail. I work for the post office." He says, "Well, everybody has a job, and mine is clearing brush, and now I must go." He turned around and walked back up the hill. I watched him take a few steps, and I hopped back in my rig and went down the road, and I called my friend Arla, and I noticed she had sent me a text while I was outside of the truck. And her message was, "Is he Native American?" And he was. And I called her, and she just laughed, and we talked about it for a bit. And she says, "Jeff, he knew you were coming before you did." And so a couple of days later, I was in my car, and I was heading to work or something, and I was at I could see Mount St. Helens over there, and there was a tree on the other side of the road, and I looked up at the tree, and this is wintertime. I looked up at the tree, and his face was in the tree. It was his face, his nose, his chin, his eyes, his head, everything about. Yeah, I could see him totally in the tree. Well, the next time I pulled out on the road, I looked at the tree again. All I saw was branches and limbs. So
Wow.
anyway.
And you said you didn't have any weird stories. I don't know about that. I mean, I was like, well, if that's not, I don't know. Your name, I do. That's yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I remember what he looks like, and I don't know, we kind of had the same nose. I feel like maybe he was an ancestor or something, or related to me, or I don't know. But I've been back to that same spot a few times, and the first time I went back after that incident, I didn't recognize it. I went to the cultural center, and I was in that driveway, and I got out and I looked across the road to where that driveway was, where he was. It didn't look anything like it did that day. Now there's a house there, so it's completely different, but it is what it is.
You might have entered a different dimensional slip.
Could have. And why in the world I'm barely going down the road like 10, 15, 20 miles an hour, and my Jeep just starts going swerving back and forth out of control, and then came to a perfect stop. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. There's many layers of dimensions, so you may have been portaled into like a different.
Yeah. Well, it also taught me that listen to my intuition and don't second guess myself. Because when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to talk to him. No, I think I'm going to go down the road. Oh no, you're not, Jeff. Turn your rig around and yeah, you need to talk to this guy. So it was a really cool experience.
I'm sure Kathleen has similar, but that's actually why I'm here today is because I was told the same thing. You need to talk to Dave Rossi. I saw
Mm.
him on a podcast, YouTube channel. I never talk to people. I'm a hermit, right? They're like, no, you need to contact this guy. And it was Dave Rossi that got me involved with all to put me in with my team. And that's why we're here. And I know there's a lot of people who watch this channel and they feel like, oh, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to contact. Like, dude, if you feel like you need to contact us, you need to. That's like that's your job. It's like, yeah. So
That's how I got a hold of Frank.
and yeah, oh, that's how I found Frank. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, I was watching a YouTube video. He was being interviewed by somebody, and he ended it with his email, and I could not stop myself from contacting him. And then he said, "There's somebody you have to meet." And so I started talking to this friend of me. It was a friend of his over there because he's in New Jersey. And she was here last summer. We went to a CE5 together. It was a blast. She was one of the ones that heard the Bigfoot lady singing with me. So yeah, we've been friends ever since, and I of course still talk to Frank. But there are strange things that happen almost every day. At this point, I say all the time, it's like nothing would surprise me anymore. Nothing.
oh, speaking of which, I want to just mention to our viewers, that's just not a lousy photograph behind you. Those are actually orbs.
Oh yeah, yeah, I took that. It was one of my favorite pictures I took at a friend's house. I think orbs are attracted to people more than locations, but I don't know. That was before I started bumping into the elementals, so I wonder if there's a correlation.
Could be. I
I
think
don't know. Just very pretty.
yeah,
I have
I
bunches of pictures. They were all moving around.
there's more than one answer to a thing, like orbs can be many things. They can be extraterrestrials, remote, like not remote viewing, but like surveilling. That's the word I'm looking for. They can be ET surveilling an area, and they can be elementals. They can be ghosts. I mean, so it's not just one answer to a story. So yeah.
Yeah, us humans, we want to have one definition for everything, and it doesn't work that way.
Oh God. Well, I
I just
suppose.
told her I have a friend that she bought a place down in Florida, and of course she kind of got a little bit wiped out there. And she had somebody do some work, and she's like, "Since they were there, this happened." I said, "You are making the assumption that you had only one problem, but it was a very big storm." In the automotive world, people always do that. You come in with a light out and then you fix the light and like, well, since you fixed that light, there's noise in the back. No, darling, it's an old car. You never have one thing ever.
Oh my God. Yeah. So,
True.
we already know your stories about being up on the ships, but Kathleen, one story I thought that was so cute because it definitely kind of gives people a different impression of what it's like up there. But remember the fellow that you met on the ship once? He was wearing glasses, but he didn't have any ears.
Oh, that was not a ship. That was in a meeting.
Oh, that was in a
Yeah,
meeting. Okay.
yeah, I don't have a name for him. He told me his name. I have it written down somewhere. Yeah, he didn't have ears. He was just a funny guy, but all he did was tell jokes and tell jokes and tell jokes. Everything was either a pun or reminded him of a joke or something. Like the day that I got chipped when I went, it was a different friend. They took me up on a ship, and they couldn't chip me without my permission. And I'm not a fan, just saying, I'm not into that thing. And I heckled that poor. She was kind of like a nurse that did it. He didn't do it. He was just kind of shaking his head. But I heckled that nurse for like an hour and made her convince me of why it would be a good idea because I was just not seeing it. I told her, I'm like, I have a vision problem with that. I'm just not seeing why this is a good idea. But the poor lady, oh, and he just kept shaking his head. Finally, I eventually let him because they said if there was a problem, it was the fastest way to find me.
Right.
And so, yeah, and even after I decided I was going to let him, I still heckled her for a little bit longer just because it was fun.
Well, Well, that's what it's like. People, that's what they're like. I mean, I have, we joke all the time, and it's just people, they're just people. The actual,
Oh,
they're
the forest people are hysterical.
same thing.
All they do is everything to them is like funny. Yeah, it's funny. The kids prank, the grown-ups make jokes. I was cleaning one day and I said something about I don't like the color red. I don't know. I've just never really cared for it. There's a number of colors I don't like, and I learned there was reasons for that. But anyway, I was just going on and on. We're having a little chitty chat about I just don't like red. And all he said was, and yet your vacuum cleaner is red.
Oh
I don't know. He thought it was hysterical.
my God, that's yeah.
It was true. It was red.
Yeah. That's what it's like. And people ask me, what do Ike and I talk about all the time? Like nothing. It's just
Vacuum cleaners.
exactly. That's what I mean. People like, can you recount your conversation? It's like nothing. When he comes to me to relax and I'm with him to relax, and we just have, we cook together, we hang out together, we
The
garden
smell of
together.
coffee.
It's just nothing talk, it's like literally like we don't talk about anything.
It's like a Seinfeld episode. It's a
Just
show
like
about
talking to my
nothing.
mother.
Yeah. Yeah. And Frank's always asking me about symbiosis. I'm like, Frank, we don't talk about anything. We talk about makeup and clothes and like, which I've never done, but she's into that. So nothing, it's like, does she have any information? Like, no, no. It's like, we were
Well,
just telling jokes.
Not everything is earth shattering.
Very little of it is earth shattering in my area.
well, let me ask Kathleen. I think the forest people have a great sense of humor too. And that's what you experience a lot with them. That's because you've got a great sense of humor, don't you think?
I never looked at it that way. Well, a lot of these things, because there's this issue, because I used to go up the hill all the time, and it takes between 2 and 4 hours to get to the top. And when they were up there was lots of structures. They took them all down when they left, but they haven't been there for some years now. And I was just bitching and moaning that it's so steep at one point that I always crawl on my hands and knees to get up this hill. And I'm like, it just sucks. And it was like, so why don't you use the path? I said, there's a path. They never showed me the path. I'm still climbing up. I know if I go down the road a bit, there's a road now that goes up because there's like a forest trail that goes up the mountain that way, but that's way down there, and I just go straight up the hill because I'm in between two hills. Yeah, so I still don't know where the freaking path is, but apparently that's funny. Maybe it's funny to watch me crawl on my hands and knees. I don't know.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I kind of asked you that question because I was on a live stream last night, and the people were talking about some gal who was interviewed and did a video. She says, "Oh, the Bigfoot people are they're evil, they're demonic. Never had a good experience with them."
I'm with you.
And I think
I have a neighbor that's demonic. I also have a couple neighbors that are really awesome. We kind of vary, so do they.
Yeah, but I think for some people, all their experiences are bad when they're in the woods and have a Sasquatch or forest person experience. And I think some of it reason is because maybe they're indoctrinated by some religion that taught them that anything other than us is bad, created by Satan or something, or maybe it's just a reflection of what they got going on inside of them, and so they're going to have a bad experience if they're not a good human.
I've seen some people in really humans I'm having a really good experience. They're doing exactly the same thing, but their interpretation of it is like horrible, just horrible. It's like you could go to a park with a fountain and they'll give you 29 reasons why it sucked.
Yeah.
It's, if you want to find, I used to tell my daughter all the time, if you pick up enough rocks on a beach, you're going to find a crab if you keep looking. And some people just can't stop looking.
Yeah, I'm glad Jeff actually asked that because that's something that I've always found strange. If you look at all these Bigfoot shows, and that's why the last time we did our interviews, I was like, these are pivotal because these are actual interactions between, and the same thing can go for ET, where you have actual interactions between people and other people or other being people, forest people, And it's not, oh, I was there and they scared me and they threw a rock at me and oh my God, because that's what the media wants to portray with the ET as well as the forest people. So yeah, I've always kind of wondered, like, what's the deal with that?
They're really helpful too. We had a really bad storm and I had a tree right beside my house that it was due to fall, but I didn't think it was quite that close to falling. And during the storm, there was only about a 5 foot zone where the tree could fall and not crush something. If it would have gone that way, it would have hit my house. If it would have gone that way, it would have, like everywhere it went would have caused a huge problem, except for that one little weird way that it fell that didn't match any of the other trees that got knocked down that day. So yeah, I always figured I probably had a little help there.
Yeah, for sure.
And even the oak tree that fell, it did take out a small corner of the house, of my chicken fence, my dog fence, but it didn't fall on the house in the direction that all the other trees fell. And I heard it go. So I always wonder if I'm not having just a little bit of help here and there,
Absolutely.
because it should have taken out my house.
Right.
And that would have been bad.
You would have had a log cabin.
I'd have had a sunroof.
Right. Oh my God. Well, I think in this kind of, because you hear different stories about people saying with ETs where they think they've been abducted, but nothing really bad ever happened and they don't remember anything. And I think sometimes what was happening is the extraterrestrials, whatever races they're working with, understands that an individual might be overly frightened, but there's a reason why they have to help this person out. And I think that might be some of their experiences, which of course would be very frightening because it just ends up being, I think, as Jeff, you mentioned, it's just a glitching in the connections. Just like when you help a wild animal, they know you're trying, at some point they know you're trying to help them, but they're still really frightened, and then you help them and it's still so to me, that some of the experiences I think are that way, where it's like you see a deer caught in a fence, you're approaching the deer's, oh my God, right? And you're saying, no, everything's fine. And then you release the deer and the deer runs away, but the deer is still frightened of you. And I think that's probably a similar.
And sometimes you have to cut off a horn to get them out.
Exactly. Yeah. But to the deer is like, oh, you won't believe what happened to me. What? I got trapped.
Look what they did.
Look what they did. It was luckily, so this human came up to me. Oh my God, what happened? Well, I had my leg caught and I don't know what happened, but it's just luck that this thing was trying to grab my leg. They were going to try to grab my leg and the fence loosened and I got away. I think that's probably what happens to a lot of people, So but I got a funny story because, these drone things, everybody's talking about the drones and then the congressman, there's a mothership over the ocean. And I this morning I was talking to Ika about them and we always have our morning conversations, which really are not, they're nothing really. I'm like, it's so weird. And I'm just going on. I'm like, these guys saying that there's a mothership over the ocean. And I said, what are they doing? Fucking around. And Ika says, oh, they have the same. He says, yeah, they have the same agenda goal that we have. So like, that's his trade thing is like, what are the Pleiadians specifically, what do the extraterrestrials want here? And he always says sex. And I was just like, oh. Yeah, they are. I mean, people don't really, we joke around all the time. He has a weird sense of humor. He has kind of a not really slapstick, that's more Camiel, but Ika has kind of almost a dark sense of humor. Like if somebody trips and fall, he thinks that's like, there's things that are kind of like, that's not funny. It's actually kind of mean. He thinks it's funny. So I'm like, oh, you gotta, all right, but yeah, so
Twisted friends are fun.
Yeah, I mean, all right,
so well,
I was gonna ask, what was your first experience with Bigfoot? And I don't know if it's going to be very similar to Kathleen's because I have a sensation that it might be a little bit different, but your first experience.
My first one. Well, so it was like 1972, I think. And we moved into a house. We moved from a bad part of Portland out to the country. And I think I told the story on the last time I was on with you, but I guess it was Bigfoot before I realized it was Bigfoot. So I could say this is my first, as far as I remember. Anyway, uh, we moved into this house out in the country, an old farmhouse, and we had loaded up the Volkswagen van and took our first load over there. Well, the house was a rental house at the time, and the people that were renting the house, their family was supposed to have moved out by then. Well, they hadn't moved out, so we show up with our first load, and my stepdad went off to the side and talked to the father of the household and said, "Hey, I'm not happy. You guys are supposed to be gone." And so they were having their little discussion, and there was a bunch of kids outside that lived there, and one of the older kids came up to me and said, "You better not play outside at night. You got to watch out for that big black thing." And I was like, what? Uh, I thought it was like a black cat or something, or leopard or something. And and then when we moved in, finally, I started having nightmares of this big hairy arm reaching through my bedroom window trying to get me. And so that happened, and then I can't remember how much longer it was after that. I made friends with some neighbors, and we went to uh, the theater, and they had the clip of the Patterson Gimlin film in the previews, and I went, "They're real. I know they're real." And instantly, and my three friends all laughed at me and made fun of me, and I don't think they've ever stopped making fun of me. But so that's kind of my first intro to Bigfoot, and then I got every book I could find in the library. Every time I did a report or a speech or something, it was always about either Bigfoot, DB Cooper, Loch Ness Monster, those kind of things. But that's kind of my first. Uh,
I almost feel like they were playing a game with you, like they were trying to be funny.
well, I wasn't laughing at the time. I was
I
scared.
almost feel like it might have been almost like, yeah, let's play a trick on this because he's going to be meeting with us later. So let's kind of like break the ice by doing something silly.
Yeah, it's funny because I finally figured out if I just laid right underneath the window on the floor, they could never find me because they were always reaching forward and I was right there.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah, but
yeah, I think reflecting on it now, it almost seems like they were kind of playing with you, like poking you on the shoulder, like, well,
I'll go with that.
yeah. So Kathleen, when was your first experience too with Bigfoot?
Other than Belinda playing with the lights in the house, the
Yeah.
first time I saw Henry, I was just walking my dog out in the woods. I was just right behind the house, and he was doing that fuzz out thing. I don't know, what do they call it? Slip walking. So I didn't see his whole body, and I was absolutely mesmerized. I'd seen a couple pictures of him kind of fuzzed out, when they're crossing different places, but I had never like seen it. And it was like maybe 25 feet away. And it was just, the size and the density of it was just absolutely mesmerizing. I was humbled.
But you weren't
We
frightened.
could probably learn how to do that. With that,
You weren't frightened.
well, I went back in the house and got a hold of my girlfriend. I said, "Did I just see Henry?" Because I didn't actually see his head or his legs. I could only see a shoulder and his middle and part of his belly. And it was black, like a bear has I think I don't know if their hair is hollow or what, but when a bear, you have bear up in Massachusetts? Probably not.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, when a bear walks through the woods, they're like there, and as soon as it's like light eating. As soon as they slip into the woods, they are invisible, just invisible, gone. And the hair had that light eating quality to it. So I was pretty intrigued by the whole thing. That was the first time I actually saw him.
So your contact began with more telepathic connections.
No, it started with a teenager messing with the lights in my house. She just kept turning the lights on every day. If I left the house, I'd come home and there was particular lights that she liked. They were real old. It clicked, clicked, clicked like 3 times to get to the nightlight setting. Maybe it was four, I don't know, but it had different lights in it. And those were just always turned on. There was nothing I could do. Always on. There's other lights that would come on too. Yeah, they like buttons.
I was,
It's
I
a
was gonna,
kid thing.
I
We
was
give
gonna
our
call,
own kids those little busy boards.
was like, how did you know it was Henry? When did you first meet Henry?
That wasn't Henry, that was Belinda.
Oh,
That took a while. My girlfriend can actually, I cannot normally see them when they're slipped in between. They can be standing right beside you and you won't see them. She could. We were at a craft fair or something once, and she said, Henry's standing right there leaning on that tree over there. She said, don't you see him? He's right there. I'm like, no, I don't see him. So she can just see. She was visiting me, and on her way home the first time that she saw him, and he didn't wave. I'm trying to teach him to wave at us because waving is friendly. But yeah, they don't want to. They said they're taking it under consideration. Um, yeah, he just kind of like looked at her from the side of the road. But now that the time of hiding is over, it's been over for about 2 years now. And those that didn't disagree, because they don't have to, that's why we're seeing more and more of them now. Because there's no penalty for having your picture taken or for getting seen or whatever. Now the kids are still, kids have rules and they're not allowed to be stupid, even though they are. Their kids are exactly like ours, exactly. Anything that your stupid kid did, their stupid kid is probably doing too.
oh, that's funny. The same thing with ET kids.
Yeah, children are children. They're not, some races are much more rule following than others. They vary, but they still do stupid things. They make mistakes, they make poor choices, even when they're not trying to screw up. Think of some of the stuff that I did. I broke a window with my head once trying to jump out it because I didn't understand that you had to like curl your body when you're jumping out of a high window. Man, we didn't tell mom till I was probably 45. It just slipped one day. She said, "Oh, I always wondered how that happened."
I still do stupid things. That's kind of like my thing, you know.
Your go-to.
Yeah, I don't learn. No. I don't.
I try not to repeat the same stupid thing a second time. I find different things to try.
Yes, or you don't want to perfect it.
Yeah. Have you ever seen one?
Me? No. Just eat. I'm just all
Yeah,
eat.
one of the force people.
No. The only thing down
The
here.
it's yeah,
Yeah.
the subterranean people have becoming very obvious of late. So I'm really curious to see what's going to come of that. And because everybody's forecasting when ETs will come, actually show themselves, even though they're showing themselves now, but I mean face to face stuff. And that's off a little ways, but the subterranean people, I'm absolutely confident that we're going to meet them very, very, very soon.
I've met
It's going to be an
several.
interesting
Yeah,
year.
I've met several. They never. They're the tall from Inner Earth. It was a woman and a man. They look like Pleiadians, but they're not. You can tell. And a man I met. So they were like very like.
You know what they call themselves?
We just started talking. So there's people. There's different race. There's Telosians.
What
These
is it?
Telosians.
Okay.
I don't know if he was that because you have many different races down there, but these were the human ones.
Yes.
These were, they look like Pleiadians, look like Nordics. They're taller, but you can tell they're not from the extraterrestrial. Um, so there are some from like Agartha and that but they never said to me what they were. I just wanted to connect underneath. And yeah, it was, they're very nice. Because I think people might mistake them for, as you said, extraterrestrials. But yeah, I also agree. I think they are, well, they've already been meeting with people, but I think it's sort of an
Yeah.
official, not talking about like official,
Yeah.
which I'm ready.
Well, it looks like you're already doing it.
Well, no, I mean, I want to like be, I mean, I want to be with them physically. You know, I want to live in a world where we're all.
There's a process for that. The process has to be for safety because they're as afraid of us as we are of them. We
Oh,
have to see each other at a distance and then just slowly get closer as we build trust. And it has to be on both sides.
yeah.
That's what I'm working on with one of my friends. He's a subterranean. And that's what he said is, first I'll see him like, at a distance, and then we'll just work on getting closer.
Well, Ika and I are ready. We're ready. Yeah. Well, yeah, he's been doing that, and I noticed, well, the initial contact and everything, but now I can actually feel him. The astral is so strong now, I can feel him. Well, we were in physical contact when I was a little baby, but when you're a kid, you don't think anything, everything's natural. But now it's becoming, more and more, and really, he's just a man. It's not. There's no. I know some people feel, nervous about it, but it's like they're just people, and once you see them in person, you're gonna say that's just a person.
Yeah, he's a dude. He's just a dude.
That's what he says, and it's true. So it's like, I now I can really feel him, and I'm actually, smell is a weird word, but not so much that, but it's like there's that pheromone, there's aspects of physicality that I'm able to
A lot of them have a scent that they make sure before, before you can actually physically see them.
Yeah.
And when the point is, by the time you do actually see them, like the first time that I saw, somebody in 3D, it was like I was so familiar that it wasn't startling. It was like, hey, hey.
Exactly.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, that's it, and I, it's, people shouldn't be concerned, it's just, why would you be concerned? I'm more concerned about.
If anybody wanted to hurt us, we would have done it a long time ago.
Oh, they're not. Yeah. I mean, I'm more afraid of, well, that was my concern actually, because I have a phobia of Terrans. I have a hard time processing earth energy, Terran energy. So I'm like, oh my God, well, he looks like a person. So that was my concern, was like, am I going to be afraid of him because he has a human body? So that was a concern, that I had.
They don't consider themselves to be human.
Yeah. So, but to me, it looks human.
I don't know what that means.
They look human to me. So I'm kind of like, I have a problem with humans, but I don't seem to have a problem with them. So, it ends up working out well. Like, and I'm connected to animals. Animals are my thing. So I just have this phobia of humans, and that was a concern. Like, am I going to be able to? We've actually been working on that, where he's had to do some like mind control and mind wipe so that we could desensitize my body to physical contact to a human. So it worked for a little while, and then we're just going to keep working on it. And I gave him permission to kind of mind control me a little bit.
Probably hard to get groceries without seeing a human.
Well, they make me nervous. Like, I get anxiety. So that's what I don't. I mean, I don't know if it came from the abduction, but it's so we're working on it. But I don't have it, and this is the weird thing. I don't have the human anxiety when I'm with them, because I've done so many missions where I've bilocated and are working with, 6'5" guys in uniform, space uniform, and no problem whatsoever. I've been in, I've been bilocated to cars where they're dressed like humans, and I'm working, no problem. So let's knock on wood.
I don't notice height for some reason, which makes no sense to me. I've always wondered about that.
No.
Like, how do you not notice that somebody is 10 feet tall? You're just hanging out.
Yeah.
It's like, the next day, it's like, because I remember what I did, but it's like it seemed perfectly normal.
Yeah. It feels perfectly normal. So Jeff, when you were with the Grays, how did it feel?
Well, I wasn't scared or anything, and I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And they had asked me if I wanted to communicate verbally or telepathically, and I thought, wow, telepathic would be kind of cool. So that's how we communicated, and I wasn't scared at all. And although I'd seen UFOs from my bedroom window before, and seen the light up in the sky, and I knew it was them, and I was scared shitless, and I would hide under my blankets, and I could feel the heat rushing from my feet all the way up my head and back down to my toes, and just out of pure fear. So those are the times that I was really scared, and then I remember this incident with that light I'm talking about right now. I finally said, I've got to see what it is. I have to see what it is. And I looked out the window, and it was a partly cloudy night, and it had popped through the clouds and was pretty close to my house. And when I went to look at it again, I went back into the clouds and it just shot across the sky southbound, like just, and the clouds all lit up as it went through
Yes.
the clouds, and it was gone. And so, there were times that I got really scared, and but the time I got abducted, whether it was a dream or not, I don't think it was a dream, but I wasn't afraid at all. I thought it was the coolest experience.
Yeah. And that's always been mine. If I'm up on a ship or anything, it's like, man, I belong more than I've ever belonged anywhere. Yeah, it's for
Is there
sure.
a certain time when you find it easiest to communicate with them? For me, it's when I'm driving because you do the theta thing.
Mm.
Walking in the woods, driving, meditating, it's all the same. So most of my big conversations occur when like the really meaty ones occur when I'm driving.
Oh, yeah, I've had that. For me, it's just whenever they have something really important to say, they're like, hey, they knock on my door. I'm like, I know. And I'm like, okay, what do you have to say? Yeah, no, it's just random. Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, like now, sometimes it'll come through, but if I'm doing something that requires me to be like doing a podcast, where I'm like worried about the technology, when you're like really in 3D, I hope this works. I hope we're recording it right. That's when it's hard. Yeah. But it can be,
Distracted.
yeah. Well, like, and it's just random. Like, I don't think, like when I was talking to Jeff and that lady wanted to come through and give him a message, boom. I mean, it wasn't anything I did, and I tell people that you can't force it sometimes. It's just when it comes, it comes. Yeah.
Andrea, have
I've
you had
been
a chance?
practicing and oh,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I was, Andrea, I was just wondering if you'd had a chance to sort through whatever they downloaded on you when we spoke on the phone that one time, because you said there was so much information that you can't uh, discern it all. Have you come up with anything that maybe I should know, or
Yeah, it's pretty much what I told you. She was having a hard time making the full connection. I know, and she basically condensed it. I mean, just that, that's your family and that they love you, and they actually brought a ship by. My So ultimately it was just that tell Jeff, because he already knows that he's here to be a liaison in a diplomatic kind of position. You're a very old consciousness. Obviously, if you're one of them, it tends to be. So they said what you're going to be doing is facilitating the interactions. So that's why it's super important that you pay attention to your intuition. Like, I should stop and talk to that guy. Yes, you also need to start upping your ability to read vibrations from people, from animals, by that telepathy, all that. Which you can do, is just a matter of sort of doing. More doing. Maybe work with automatic writing, light language, stuff like that. Writing it. They're showing me writing it, right? Fire. They're also showing me fire. Something to do with fire when you're watching fire, like sitting by a campfire, stuff like
oh
that.
yeah, no, I love that. Oh, I built so a couple weeks ago, I went to Central Oregon to help a friend out to work on his parents' house and do a couple repairs and do some cleanup. And one of my chores was to make a fire. So we were burning some garbage and, well, bad lumber and wood and stuff. Uh, I kind of have to back up a little bit. I had that one experience in the woods. I think I told you. Frank knows it. Where it had the dancing flames.
Dancing flames, yeah.
Kathleen, I don't think I told her, but uh, yeah, several years ago in the woods, I'm in a tent with my buddy Jim, and I wake up because I see all these lights all over the place. I could see through the canvas tent, and I looked out the front of the tent, and our fire had started back up in the middle of the night, but there were two flames side by side. I called them the dancing flames, and they were going from 3 feet to 10, 12 feet back and forth, just two individual flames. And we also saw two 10-foot tall black figures walking around that fire, those flames. Uh, and so, anyway, so a couple weeks ago, I built this fire and I kept throwing more and more stuff on it. And I was looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's two flames side by side. And it reminded me of the dancing flames. And so I stood there for a while and I'm like, why am I not recording this? So made a I made a 44-second recording of it. 4 is my favorite number. But anyway, it isn't exactly like the Dancing Flames. I'll have to send it to you, but it is really
Yeah.
close to the Dancing Flames. So I felt like I'm being reminded of that, and I wanted to ask Kathleen if you have any insight onto what that could have been. I feel like it was some type of ceremony that Jim and I were, privileged to have been presented, to us. Do you have any insight on that, Kathleen?
It feels like a celebration of some sort. Did it feel like a celebration to you? And it might
Uh,
have just been as simple as you made a good connection to them.
well, that we were there 3 nights,
We're
and they're definitely.
celebrating when I finally connected with one of my higher friends. I could, in my mind's eye, I could see him literally dancing. He wasn't saying anything. He was just dancing and dancing and dancing. I'm like, what the heck is that all about? He was just so excited that I noticed he was there, that he was literally dancing. It's like, so, it's not always some higher message or something. It's just right now we're working on connection. And when we actually get that connection, when we really, really see them, that's a big, hairy deal.
Yeah.
And once you make the connection, it doesn't go away. It's not like your aunt's nephew's brother that you run into at a party once or twice and you never see him again. This is once you make this connection, this is a permanent bond. It doesn't stop, it only builds. So it's worth celebrating. Every single person is incredibly important.
Yeah, Jeff,
We
they
cannot do this alone.
no. They also mentioned too to look into the flames when they're saying blending, your
Scrying.
yeah, and they said blending your work, your physical work, your 3D work that we all do, I work with the horses so what they say when you're doing that, that's going to be a really good time to start becoming connected to a sense of purpose. So focus on having a sense of purpose in what you're doing. And then they said you'll begin to connect between that and the galactic purpose, as well as, I mean, and they don't want to make it where it's like there's any difference in the value of that. They're very simple beings. They're all very simple. And they said, but you want to start beginning to integrate the different aspects of what you're here to do. That's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
What you're going to have to do when we begin to assimilate these new races, species, and cultures with the people that are here, because you're going to be the one that's going to, in your area, make some of those connections. So you're being given experiences so that they won't be strange to you. They're also sort of charging your body. They're changing your body. And they want you to begin, just staying yourself, doing what you want, being in the woods, all that stuff, but to see it a little bit of a more expansive way, to start making a lot of those connections. So if you're walking in the woods, try to telepath with a deer, something like that.
Yeah.
But especially they're really stressing the fireplaces. So you sit around these fire pits, watch the flames.
Yeah. Well, to see if I can show you this. I don't know
Right.
if that's.
Yeah, I think, oh yeah, there it is. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. In the video, you can see the flames are a little more separated, but I love that fire I had going there. But yeah, you're right. I like to make a grandpa fire, and you see all kinds of things in the fire.
They also said to ask. So if you're not, this is what people never do. They're like, oh, how do you get deeper connection? Ask.
Yeah.
Ask.
Right.
Do I need to know anything right now? Then you'll get it. What does this mean? If they're showing you something and you don't understand it, which happens to me all the time because I'm stupid. So, like, I don't know, like, what do you mean? Like, come or I'm not connecting. Let me connect. Take the time to help me in. What do you mean? Can you show me and can you tell me a different way? So ask, and they'll say, oh yeah, then they'll do different things so you can actually understand. Like any comment. Yeah.
One of my glitches was I was waiting for them to talk all the time.
Yeah.
So I just stand around and wait for like weeks. It's like you have to start the conversation.
Yeah.
Even and it was like, well, I don't know what to talk about. I don't have any questions. I'm just waiting for them to do something. That's not how it works. if you don't walk into your sibling's house for a visit and stand there and stare at them. You
Yes.
just start talking. Hi, how's it going?
And that's what,
When are we gonna have that picnic?
yeah, that's where people stop. It's so funny because I hear people all the time, like, I don't get any connection. They're like, I'm like, well, I can feel them. Like, yeah, that's them knocking on your door. That's them calling
You
on you.
just talk about stuff. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yes, they're calling you, but they're not going to barge into your space. They're what you're feeling is them knocking on your door. They're ringing the phone. You're not picking up the phone. It's like,
Yeah,
That's what was driving me crazy. I'm like, I can feel them staring at me. They're just watching. I don't know what they want. Well, say hello. I never said hello.
yeah.
how do you do it? What can I help you with? Right, exactly. That's what I do, you know.
Well, there was one time I spent 2 nights at my spot I was going to for about like 10 years in a row. And so my friend and I, we stayed 2 nights there, and the whole time, right when we got out of our rig and we're setting up camp, it was eerily quiet. There were no birds, no bugs, uh, no sounds whatsoever. An occasional Learjet would fly over. I think it was probably going to Salem, Oregon, to the airport, but it was quiet as you could hear a pin drop. Well, so after 2 nights, the last morning we were there, we picked up camp, put everything away, and I said, "Oh wait, we need to go sit on the stump and say goodbye." And so there was a great big stump that overlooked some new growth area, and it was a place to kind of sit and meditate or just stand there and listen. Well, we sat down, and I said, "Well, thanks for letting us be here. We got to go now." And all of a sudden, this machine gun sounding wood knocking happened, sort of to our left and to our right. Two different machine gun wood knock sounds, just back and forth. And it was a lot. It was as loud as machine guns and as fast as machine guns. And I felt like the one on the left was male and the one on the right was female. And it went on for, I don't know, a good 30, 45 seconds maybe. And we just looked at each other like, well, all right. It was so quiet the whole time until right when we left. It was just weird.
A grand send off.
That's, but I think you made a good point there, which is something the ETs are always saying, is just slow down. If you want to have an experience, like just like you did, just sit down, just slow down. Humans got to learn that. Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that was back when I was
Our busyness is downfall.
Yeah.
yeah, back then I was really working on getting over my fear and really working on, like, if I went out to my little woodsy spot or wherever I went out in the woods, to be in the moment. And I really learned how to like sit still and just be, because I would get to a spot I wanted to go to. I'd get out of my rig and walk around for 5 minutes. Well, now I need to go to this other spot. Well, no, just sit down and slow down and just be and just live in the moment and just cherish the forest and be part of it. And that's when things really started happening for me.
Well, that's all the mind program. We've all been through it, and we all still fall into it sometimes, but that's the mind program. That's the mind control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, well, guys, we can't wait to have you on again. We've done an hour. I always kind of keep mine, that seems to be a good, most of us, you're kind of relaxing for an hour or so. You're having dinner or something you want to watch. I like to, these are such relaxing, lovely journeys that we go on. And that's what I hope that our wonderful friends who watch just kind of have a moment just to relax a little bit, just kind of take it down a notch and relax, enjoy themselves. And I want to thank both of you again. We won't be strangers for sure. They can't get rid of us that easily. We'll be back. That's a threat.
It's going to be an interesting year. We'll have lots to talk about.
Yeah. I shouldn't say it's a threat because YouTube will come on saying you threatened you're on. I didn't. It's a joke, folks. It's been crazy. The YouTube, they've been like taking everybody down for like, oh my God. All right. That's a joke. We're being funny. So not that our friends don't get it, but just for the YouTube surveillance department. You said kill. Oh God. You know what's funny though? Yeah. Watch this. Reptilians. Let's see if they put a Wikipedia. You can mention every single race or species, Bigfoots, you name it, right? The only thing they'll ever put in the Wikipedia or whatever thing on the bottom, watch, is reptilians. Everything else is real. It's just the reptilians that's a myth. Watch this. Let's see if they put it down there. I'm telling you. So weird. You can say Arcturians, right? Arcturians, Syrians, Pleiadians, Venusians, you name it, Martians, right? Bigfoot, Mothman, whatever, right? Reptilians. That's the only thing they'll mention is a myth. Like, what about the rest of them? I mean, so this would be a nice little experiment. I've been meaning to do that on here, so it's.
What about Dogman?
No, they don't put that. That's real. Just reptilians.
Oh yeah, I've seen one. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, that may be for next time.
Yeah.
That's for next. Oh my God. Well, I want to thank you, Kathleen and Jeff, for taking the time to spend your busy mornings here with us. So as always, I always say
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so brilliant. So gratitude, blessings, and much joy to everyone who comes here today, and also for all of our audience. So we'll say goodbye to everyone at that. All right, let's see.
Thank you.